What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode number 13 of the Nati Pod. I'm your host, Ryan Townsend. Thanks again for joining me today. Looks to do a little post-pod here of the Bengals and Steelers from yesterday's 36-10 blowout loss. And also, part two of this pod, we'll be covering Trevor Bauer and the NL Cy Young current winner. Joining me today is a good friend of mine, former summer ball teammate of mine, Jake Whisman, current student at UC and a huge Bengals and a huge Reds fan discussing the pod today. Jake, thanks for coming on the show today, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, man.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to talking. Not really looking forward to talking about the loss, but it's something we got to do here on the post pod. So yesterday, if you guys watched the game, Bengals were blown out 36-10 at Heinz Field. I had a lot of promise for this game. Really was hopeful about this game. Almost telling a couple of my friends it was like the Super Bowl this year. Being 2-5-1, a lot of close games, just coming off a huge win against the Titans. I was really looking forward to this game, but sadly didn't live up to the expectations. So, Jake, give me your overall feelings of the game yesterday, just what you thought was going into it and overall just how it played out, man.
Yeah, watching the Titans game 2 weeks ago and how the offense just kind of rolled that week, you think coming off of a bye week, you'll come out and have some sort of plan to attack that Steelers defense. And, you had 2 weeks to prepare for it. Like, this game didn't come up. You're not playing on a short week. And they just looked completely lost on all facets of the ball. Special teams, you never see the good teams mess up on special teams. And that just kind of set the tone for the game. And, you fumble the ball early on the first punt of the game after you get off the field. And then you're right back there in your own side of the field. And, props to the defense early. I mean, they were on the field a lot and they got some big stops. I thought holding them to that field goal was huge. And they just come out and they just couldn't put it together at all yesterday. I think another weird thing, the weather early was weird. Burrow, I remember he threw like an out and it just didn't even get there. Like the ball, the weather just knocked it down. I'm like, if we can't throw the ball today, then it's going to be a rough one. And it was a rough one. So.
Yeah, I think when we're looking at it a little bit, just seeing when we talk about the big Pittsburgh games, the big Baltimore games, the big playoff games that hopefully we'll get into, when you're playing good teams like that, and like you're saying, we get them on a 3-and-out, you can't have those costly turnovers like that. I mean, an Erickson fumble here, a T. Higgins fumble when we're driving down. We're only down 6-0, and then we get past midfield and he fumbles. I mean, playing against good teams, you're not supposed to play a perfect game. So I don't think anyone's capable of playing a perfect game. But you have to play an almost perfect game. Like, you can't make those mistakes early. And it's just that hurts a little bit too. And then, like you're talking about with the weather, I mean, it was cold yesterday. And some of the throws that Burrow had, it looked like he was off balance with the receivers a little bit, like that out route you're talking about. I remember, I think it was late in the third, early in the fourth. We were at our own, 10-yard line. He throws a go ball to A.J. Green. It's 10 yards behind him. Like, the miscommunication here and just the way he threw the ball yesterday, a little bit of a down game for Joe Burrow, and he talked about it in his press conference. But, I mean, that's just something when you're playing those good teams, you have to be able to do that stuff. So lead it in here to my second question of the day. I already talked about it a little bit. We had 2 costly turnovers. Erickson, obviously, we talked about with the fumble, and then T. Higgins having that fumble after getting through midfield. And then if you look at the stats from yesterday, the Bengals were 0 for 13 on third down conversions. 0 for 13. You're not going to win a football game going 0 for 13 on third down conversions. So in your eyes here, with those 2 costly turnovers and the third down conversions, we couldn't get anything. Does the game really change in your eyes if those 2 plays don't happen and we can convert a third down? Or is it just like, it's closer, but we don't come out on top still?
Yeah, I think it's closer. I mean, I can't say they're going to win. That defense was depleted, but yeah, I think it's completely different. If Erickson doesn't fumble that, it just kind of sets the tone for the rest of the game. I mean, and you kind of saw that. Like, it just was a completely different game. Even though it was one drive, it was just it felt different. So I think it's a completely different game. I don't know if they win, but it's definitely – I don't think it's what it was yesterday. I don't think we lose by that much. But, yeah, it's rough. You really against Pittsburgh and against those good teams, you just can't afford to give the ball away that much when you're not going to ever get the ball back on turnovers, because that's been the biggest issue. You saw that yesterday. Jesse Bates drops what would have been a pick six. It was still late. I mean, it was late in the game, but still, like, those are the plays you have to have if you plan on beating teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, those teams. So, yeah, just you can't turn the ball over like that early.
No, I completely agree with that for sure. Talking about the Jesse Bates pick six, I mean, if he catches that ball and he takes it to the house, it's 29-14 with, I think it was like 14:41 on the clock. Because Pittsburgh was driving, it was 3rd and 2. They were in that behind the back play there a little bit, trying to get Ebron, and Bates stuffed it out right there. And I mean, just taking advantage of your stuff too. Like, you can't have Hubbard getting a roughing the passer, whether it was really a roughing the passer or not. You can't have that. Another thing too that I think kind of hurts a little bit, but overall obviously didn't, because I don't know if they scored on this drive, but that punt after the Boyd challenge, we challenged Boyd's catch, ended up staying on the field. The next punt on that same drive, Pittsburgh fumbles and we recover, and the refs bailed it out for forward progress. And I was thinking to myself, well, hold on now. Like, if they're going to bail it out for forward progress, like, is that something that can be challenged? Like, if we come out with that fumble, Jake, I think we're getting a little bit of momentum back there. You agree with that?
Yeah. Another thing that I think is big, bad teams don't overcome referees, if that makes any sense. I know Joe Goodberry says that all the time.
Oh yeah.
Bad teams just don't overcome that. Like, you never hear like the Chiefs always like, oh, the refs did this to them, the rest of that. They're a good team. They're able to overcome it. And with the Bengals, sometimes that one fumble that you're not going to get, just they're not overcoming it because they're not good enough. And it hurts to say, but I mean, it's kind of the truth. You see it yesterday. I mean, after that fumble, just can't put it back together. But, I mean, the refereeing, whenever you're in Pittsburgh, you kind of expect it. I mean, Bud Dupree shoving Joe Burrow all the way into the bench.
Oh, unbelievable.
Not in Pittsburgh, but people still are shocked about it. And that's something that kind of makes me laugh. But
yeah, I think overall when we talk about that, the refs, I think it's a little bit of reality. Like, maybe Hubbard doesn't have a roughing the pass. Like, he touched Ben Roethlisberger's shoelace and he fell down. He got 15 yards. But when we're talking about being a bad team like the Bengals are right now, you have to take advantage of those possible miscues, and you have to be able to overcome when things don't go your way.
Yeah.
So looking here into the third question, okay, we've seen 2 games this year against the top dogs in the AFC North, probably going to be the top dogs for the next couple of years, Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. In those 2 games, we have been outscored 63-13. That's insane right there. Outscored 63-13 against the 2 top dogs. In your eyes, with obviously how the Bengals are right now, we've got a couple injuries, DJ Reader, Trey Waynes, a couple corners on IR. Are the Bengals really that far off from competing in the AFC North? What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, I feel much better this year having Joe Burrow at quarterback than I would with Andy Dalton. Like, you're light years away with Andy Dalton. Like, if this happens with Andy Dalton, we're years away. I think that, we have the quarterback. And so I think we're much closer. There's just the little pieces that they kind of need to fill through the draft and free agency. I mean, another lineman, some pass rush, some stuff like that. And that makes you more of a complete team. But, yeah, just to kind of go back, I think they're closer. The Steelers and Ravens as it stand right now are way better teams. But since you already have the quarterback, you're much closer than you were, let's say, even last year or the years before that. So I think this is the closest they've been to contention since 2015.
Yeah, I would definitely look at that a little bit and agree with that too, because what I've seen so far from Zach Taylor and just what he's trying to build as a program, he spent over $150 million in free agency. I thought this year's draft class was fantastic. We've seen it a little bit this year. Logan Wilson's played well. T. Higgins, obviously, Joe Burrow, the guys that are supposed to play well. Last night, too, Hakeem Adeniji playing the left tackle spot against Bud Dupree. I thought he played fantastic. Now, Pro Football Focus didn't give him as high as a grade I thought they would. But, I mean, you're handling Bud Dupree. And then we talk about with the free agency going back and forth, we get Quentin Spain. dude literally hasn't been in the building for more than 2 weeks, and we asked him to play right tackle last night. He handles T.J. Watt for the most part. We get Tack McKinley to come in a little bit, the DJ Readers, the Trey Waynes, all those guys.
Yeah.
Like, Taylor wants to win, man. Like, do you think with these pieces, though, like, how are the injuries hurting us here? Like, if we can't sustain a healthy team, does it matter what these free agency signings do? Or, like, what do we have to worry about with getting these guys and continuing to build and draft and continue the free agency?
Yeah, I mean, they're really hurt. And, I mean, that's to put it nicely. I mean, you're missing – I mean, think about what you're missing on just the defensive backside of the ball. You're missing Trey Waynes. You're missing – Mackenzie Alexander comes and he's hurt in the first quarter, concussion. You're missing Darius Phillips to the IR right now. You have two other guys. I think it's Winston Rose and I can't think of the other one. They have COVID. I mean, you're missing five cornerbacks that you expected to have at the beginning of the year. I mean, John Ross gets hurt in a practice where they were going to have him practice at cornerback. You're hurt, and the Steelers, their receivers are good. I mean, Claypool, Johnson, Juju, and I mean, they kind of took advantage of a depleted secondary. So, but yeah, I think it's a lot different. But they don't have the depth. I mean, DJ Reader, I don't think changes too much in the pass rush. He doesn't change that much there. But yeah, I mean, they have to get healthy if they plan on winning anything, honestly, the rest of the year.
Yeah, I definitely look at that as one of like the key pieces that has always hurt us. Like, I mean, our top draft picks, Will Jackson in his first year didn't play. Billy Price in his first year didn't play. Jonah Williams in his first year didn't play. Like, I don't know what it is within the Cincinnati Bengals organization, but for some reason, these guys that always come in cannot stay healthy. Like, if we had a healthy roster, I would anticipate this being a 500 ball club right now. Like, truthfully, realistically, this team's a 500 ball club if we're healthy. But we can't stay healthy, and I just think that's one of the downfalls that's been hurting us. And obviously, teams talk about the blowout last night, but dude, yeah, you talk about Big Ben and talk about his three key weapons. He's going at Tony Brown all night. He's going at Jalen Davis all night. Those guys can't cover those guys. We're being realistic. I mean, those guys are cornerback like number 6, cornerback number 8 on the depth chart. Like, when you're going up against teams like the Steelers, you're almost anticipating like it's not going to go well.
Yeah. And another thing that I think, like, if the Bengals want to win games, they have to score 30 points, 30-plus points. I mean, we know that. And especially against Pittsburgh, in a year like this, you're going to have to score 30. And it's just not going to happen when, you have nobody on defense, can't get off the ball or can't get off the field. But yeah, it feels like every year we play Pittsburgh, it's something. And this year it was having no quarterbacks. So
yeah, that's the downfall a couple of years ago. I mean, I think Joe Mixon didn't play in one of the games. Obviously, the playoff game we had A.J. McCarron, but like, it's always something, man. With Pittsburgh, it's always something. I would really like to see this team be in full strength and be fully healthy come that Monday night game. Obviously, I don't know what's going to happen with our easier slates, down the line. We got Washington, New York, Dallas coming up before that. But I would love to see a full healthy Bengals team, a full healthy Steelers team, and just see the different outcome that we could possibly get from it. So I'm looking forward to that, but hopefully something can change going to these next couple of games. Speaking of the next couple of games, last part here for the Bengals. We play Washington next week. They just came off a 21-point comeback that fell short against the Detroit Lions. Matt Prater, I think, kicked a 59-yard field goal to win it, final seconds yesterday. So, Jake, looking at the Redskins here, obviously this is a winnable game for the Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah. Every fan, every coach, every player should see this is a winnable game. This can be win number 3 and the first road win under Zach Taylor. Yeah. So, in your eyes here, what are we looking forward to next week in Washington? Like, what do the Bengals have to focus on to really get this win next week?
I think the biggest thing for next week, they have to show some sort of pass rush. And I think bringing in Tack McKinley on the other side will help a lot. Carl Lawson is literally the only pass rush they have right now.
Yeah.
Has pretty much every pressure of yesterday, of everyone combined. I would personally like to see Lou maybe become a little more creative with his blitzes. Just try to force something. And yesterday, hey, you got to give props to the Steelers. They picked up a lot of the blitzes. I mean,
Yeah.
kind of saw what was coming. But if they can show some sort of pass rush, that'll make me feel a little better. But on the other side of the ball, you know, Washington is not a good team. We know this. They're not good. But their defense is not terrible. I mean, you're going to have to deal with the likes of Chase Young in that front seven. I mean, they can get to the quarterback if you let them. And so it's going to be interesting to see if they can, one, get a little more healthy on that line and then get back to more of a normal-looking offensive line. But, yeah, if they really need to keep Joe clean this week. And it'll be really interesting to see. There's some interesting matchups on that line this week. But, yeah, they're just going to have to get that going. And it would be nice to see them try to get something going with the running backs too. I do say, not to look back on yesterday, it's just so much different when Joe Mixon is not back there. It's hopefully Joe is back. Joe Mixon is back next week. Can get him a little more involved, and then just keeping Joe Burrow clean. I think those are kind of the keys to win the game. I mean, it's cliche, but it's also the truth. You look at every single game that they've lost. I mean, that's what doesn't happen. There's no pass rush. They don't keep the pocket clean for Joe Burrow. And so those are the two biggest things that I think they need to do to win that game.
Yeah, I definitely see that for sure. I think Joe Mixon coming back next week is going to really boost this offense. It's just the dynamic of the offense. Now, obviously, we outgained the Steelers yesterday on the ground 139. So I think it was, I would want to say 44, 45 yards. I mean, we did pretty well, but I don't account for much of that because, like, we had Travion Williams coming in. He got a couple bursts. Samaje Perine. We're down 36-7, guys. Like, the Steelers aren't giving up at this point, but they're playing their backups. Like, they're pushing their guys in and just trying to get some playing time. So I think that number, like you're talking about, is a little bit, even though lopsided, it's not correct. And if Joe Mixon coming back, healthy dynamic to the offense, I think it's really going to boost the offense for next week. Because Joe Mixon, talking about, he's obviously we extended him 4 years, $48 million. He's one of the key pieces I think Joe Burrow has been missing the last couple of weeks in this offense. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Just the dynamic's different. Gio is much better in pass protection. I think we all know that, but just the things that Mixon is able to do out of the backfield, catching the ball, and as well as running the ball that Gio can't do, they kind of missed there. But another big thing from yesterday too, they ran the ball a lot more on first down. I think it was 7 times.
Yeah.
And every single time with Zach Taylor, when I feel like he's starting to figure it out, he has like one game where I'm just like, man, what is that? And I know they're probably running the ball late on first down. That's where a lot of them come from. But like Pittsburgh ran the ball twice on first down all game. Like I'm pretty sure it was twice. And I mean, I don't like that. It just seems that he gets a little conservative on the bigger stages. So, but yeah, that's just kind of my last bit on the Steelers part. But there's some things to look forward to. I don't think that this is necessarily like a wash of a season. And to be completely honest, it was never about this season.
No, not at all.
If you would have told me that Joe Burrow would look the way he did now, I would be like, cool. Don't care how many wins we have. Like we've got our quarterback. So I mean, it sucks. I mean, you don't want to lose to Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, but I mean, you got a rookie quarterback, and I feel like we forget that he's a rookie at times. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that for sure. I mean, just thinking about this season and what we're coming down to. I mean, obviously, like you're talking about, I hate losing to Pittsburgh, hate losing to Baltimore, getting blown out in those games. But you're right, it wasn't about this year. Did I anticipate the playoffs this year? Absolutely not. If we made the playoffs this year for some whatever reason, I was like, whoa, Joe Burrow's the real deal. I don't know how anyone didn't see that at first. I think it was Vilma yesterday in the during the commentating, he was talking. He's like, yeah, I had Tua Tagovailoa as the number 1 rated quarterback in this draft. And I'm just like, dude, like, what games are you watching? Like, Tua hasn't been great in his first 3 games. I mean, he's 3-0 right now as a starter, which is awesome. But, like, he's getting carried a little bit by the defense. And Joe Burrow's just putting on a show. So I'm anticipating a show next week from Joe Burrow and the Bengals, hoping to get the first road win of the Zach Taylor era and hopefully the first road win of the season. So, but I'm looking forward to that. So, part number 2 here of the pod here, we're going to move on to little Reds talk, little Reds baseball here, specifically Trevor Bauer, who just came off, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday night. He just got named the NL Cy Young winner of the 2020 season. Hats off to Trevor Bauer. That was an awesome accomplishment. Personally, I thought if he didn't win, I was like, dude, why is this guy not winning? I mean, just watching him this year, I thought he completely dominated. He completely carried the Reds from time to time, obviously with Castillo and Sonny Gray. I mean, really was the anchor of this pitching staff. So, but Jake, in your eyes here, the race between Bauer, Yu Darvish, and DeGrom, first of all, I thought it was a really good race. I mean, all 3 are deserving of being NL Cy Young winners. But in your eyes, was this race, was it even close? Or are you like, this is Trevor Bauer's Cy Young all the way?
Yeah, it was not close. For me personally, I don't think there was any way you could have made a case for Darvish or DeGrom over Bauer. Bauer had 1 less start than both of them and still had better numbers. DeGrom had, I think, 4 more strikeouts. I think he had 104.
Yeah.
And that's with 1 more start. So Bauer would have easily broken that and had that, he could have had, well, he wouldn't be able to have the pitching triple crown. Not that matters because he wouldn't have the wins. But in all the statistics that really matter in today's age, he could have had. And so, I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Darvish had 2 first-place votes.
I think it was like 2 or 3. It wasn't many.
I mean, Bauer was the clear-cut Cy Young in the NL this year. So, and it was voted that way. So, but it was nice to see. He had a very, very, very impressive year. So, and a lot of those too were in doubleheaders. I mean, his complete games were in doubleheaders, but I mean, imagine, another inning or 2 out of those because, he was in those games, he was definitely not coming out after the 7th. So, yeah, he had a very, very impressive year. And so did, DeGrom and Darvish did too, but Bauer was just that much better this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and I think so too. A lot of people were kind of hating on Bauer's complete games being those 7-inning games, but like you're talking about, Trevor Bauer is not coming out of those games if they're 9-inning games. I think to start the year, it was a little shaky, but like with him and David Bell, the relationship between those two, David Bell knew if Trevor Bauer's pitching and he's at 100 and let's say 110 pitches in the 8th inning, and he says, I'm good to go in the 9th, he's going out there in the 9th inning. That's just how it was with Trevor Bauer because he was ready to go. He always, that scientific way he works his body, he always gets his body ready to go. I mean, he was wanting to be that guy for the Cincinnati Reds, and I thought he did a fantastic job with that. And I agree with you. I don't think the race was close. I thought if anyone was going to win it besides Bauer, it was definitely going to be Darvish because I thought Darvish pitched really well for the Cubs this year. Yeah. But just Bauer, just completely over the hump of Darvish. So yeah. I thought it was good to see it for Bauer.
Yeah, and kind of carrying that pitching staff down the end of the road. I look back at that Brewers start in September, and that was where you kind of knew, like, okay, this after the game, that's when he said, like, I don't see how you make a case for anyone else but me. And I mean, he was right. So you really can't make a case for anyone else.
No, you really couldn't. It was 100% Bauer, and I was really happy to see Bauer do that for the Reds this year. So last question here on the segment of Bauer, and then we'll let you guys go here. A lot of talk has been about Trevor Bauer signing here, Trevor Bauer signing here, Trevor Bauer coming back to the Reds. I ask this a lot in my pods. I write a lot about it in my articles. Do you really anticipate Trevor Bauer coming back to the Cincinnati Reds? And if you don't, where do you see him signing, or where could you potentially see a landing spot for Trevor Bauer?
I do think that the Reds are a real contender to sign him.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of the things that Bauer wants, like he has made I don't know if it was a bet with one of his friends that he would only sign 1-year bets or he's getting a tennis ball to balls. So, I mean,
yeah,
or whatever it was, or baseball. I think he's kind of serious about it. You see his agent, Rachel Lupa, she said that they're open to any deal. But I really do think with Bauer, it's going to be a shorter deal, maybe 1 or 2 years. And if that's the Reds, I think they might be doing that. You always see, like, even with the Moose deal, like 4 years is kind of in that range for the Reds where, they're not giving out a long-term, lengthy contract. Now, what he brings other than just pitching, he's fun. He engages with fans on Twitter. I mean, he's doing so many great things. Like, he's an entertainer. Like, he's an athlete and an entertainer. I mean, you can't tell me that his inside the COVID season vlogs were not awesome. Like,
they're
if
fantastic.
you're a Reds fan, like, you're seeing stuff, you're going to get to see the guys, like, on a daily basis. So just like the things he brings, if I'm the Reds, man, what do you want for 1 year? How much do you want? Like, pick your number and let's go. But kind of the second part to your question, if not, I think he's been oddly eyeing the Mets on Twitter. He really liked Cohen buying the Mets and has kind of been on Twitter and said, like, hey, they're going to have a good thing going. And I think Bauer, since he's an entertainer, if he wants to grow his brand, what better city than New York to do that in?
Absolutely.
And it hurts to say, but, I mean, that is the other spot that I think he's really considering. You've heard the Yankees, but do you really, if you're the Yankees, do you really want to piss off your number one Garrett Cole? Like,
no.
I don't think the Yankees are a huge contender, but yeah, keeping Bauer has to be the number one goal you have this year. Because, I mean, think about it, like, you're going to lose to Sclafani. Like, there's no way he's coming back.
No.
I mean, there's still some question marks kind of in that rotation. So, did you get that?
Yeah, I got you. We've been freezing a little bit
right
here on the pod. It's all good. It's catching you back up.
Yeah, but yeah, Bauer has to be the number one priority. Getting him back in a uniform, the Reds uniform this offseason.
Yeah, I definitely think so too. And honestly, we're kind of on the same wavelength of where he possibly could sign. Dude, when Steve Cohen bought the Mets, you're absolutely right. He's been putting a couple of vlogs out there, just a couple. I don't know if they've been on the Watch Momentum page or Trevor Bauer's personal YouTube page, but he's putting videos out there. He's like, wow, Steve Cohen buying the Mets is a really good thing for the New York Mets and their fans. And I can just, if the Reds do not work out for whatever reason, I can really see him going to be a New York Met. And another thing you talk about too with the Reds is he did have a lot of fun. And he said this was the most fun he's ever had playing baseball. And when he's looking at teams that he wants to sign with, he wants to sign with a contender. I mean, if we bring Hunter Green up next year, Tyler Stevenson back up next year, we've got all those guys. How are the Reds not a contender again? Like, he just went to the playoffs with the Reds. You know what I mean? Like, back-to-back years of being contenders. I think if he comes back, man, I think that'd be awesome for the Reds.
Yeah. And there's a lot of good things too. Him and his relationship with DJ. I mean, that's big too. I mean, Kyle Boddy working in the organization also helps too. So he's got a lot of comfort kind of with the Reds. And another big thing, and I would be interested to see, he wants to pitch every fourth day. And I could see the Reds maybe being okay with that because, like we said, you're losing, like, DeSclafani, so you're down a rotation spot there. You know, you're saving a rotation spot almost if you let him pitch every fourth game. So there should be a little extra money there to kind of give him to incentivize him basically. But you saw him pitch on short rests during the season. Like, he can do it. Like, but we'll see. It'll be interesting.
I think it's going to be interesting too. But I mean, I'm hopeful that Trevor Bauer's going to come back and be a Cincinnati Red, like you're talking about. He brings the entertainment factor. He brings the fun to Cincinnati baseball. So hopefully he's able to sign with us, man. Obviously, if he can't sign with us, I'm going to root for him wherever he goes, man. He's a hell of a baseball player. I really look up to him in the pitching aspect. But he's just a fun guy to be around. He's a fun guy to watch and really just brings the life to baseball, which is what I think a lot of fans need. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Trevor Bauer can do and where he goes from here. So, but that's going to do it for us today on the Nasty United Pod. Jake, I want to thank you again so much for coming out today, man. We had a fantastic talk today, talking Bengals, Steelers, talking Trevor Bauer. Fantastic talk, man. Can't thank you enough for coming on today.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was a great time. Tune in this week for more content. I couldn't get anyone to be on the Redskins preview pod. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an article this week. We're going to talk about a little bit what the Redskins are doing there with football, how Alex Smith's coming back off injury, how he's going to fare against the Bengals, what we can do against them. And obviously we'll have the post pod later in the week. So that's going to do it for us, guys. Appreciate your support as always. Tune in this week, and we'll see you guys soon. Who day?